Hello everybody and welcome, hopefully welcome back to round number 4 of Norway chess. Bit of hiccups, always my favorite thing, tech problems on the weekend. But I hope you guys can see us, hear us, mainly hear us. The see us part, not as important, it's more important that you can see the players. Like Magnus Carlsen versus Levon Aronian here. So let's hope things work. Peter Svidler, which game would you like to go to?
I think this one is heating up. This is a very good pick right now because Lev continued his very mysterious bishop c2 with an immediate pawn sacrifice, and he will now have to prove, well, obviously that this needs to be justified.
Yeah, I can't recall the details. I think I mentioned earlier that this idea of giving up this pawn exists, but why in combination with bishop c2 it is so wise is way over my head. Also rook d8, not the square you typically choose for your rook in these lines. Bishop c2 I'm sure was a surprise to Magnus, so maybe he tried to come up with a counter surprise, because more often than not this is a more natural square from the rook.
Yeah, this is generally where the rook goes, but rook d8 perhaps supports some e65 breaks in the future, because it sounds strange to say that in order to play e5 you place the rook on d8, but your biggest issue once you play e5 is your isolani on d5, and the rook on d8 will help support that. Magnus had taken some time to make this decision, and a3 blitzed, well, maybe not blitzed out, but played very fast by Levon, and Magnus picks up the gauntlet. But frankly, at this point, yeah, I wanted to say there is no choice, but there was a choice. He could go bishop d6 if he was worried about what he was running into.
What is he running into? I still don't get it.
I think I finally understand at least some part of why bishop c2 is played. If after a3 black plays bishop d6, we can play e4 and d takes c4 is not a move, because e5 wins the piece and there's nothing on d3.
Oh, that makes sense, because this is a typical reaction. Yeah, okay.
Finally I found out
something.
One reason why the bishop is on c2. Okay, and that explains why bishop d6 hasn't been played, because you generally don't want to allow e4 and have to take on e4. Those positions are supposed to be...
These are bad, or bad is strong, but unpleasant, whatever.
Yeah.
You probably have to play h6, and you're going to suffer a little. So after e4, if you can't go e5 here, something's wrong. Therefore, Magnus took,
and yeah, I'm not
I guess
sure.
still e4 is the idea.
Yeah, but that was my first impression, that you play e4 anyway, and you hope that because the bishop on a3 is somewhat precariously placed, black doesn't have a very good reply to it. But it's a full pawn, and you will have to prove a lot of compensation there. Even if black just kind of completely refuses to to understand what's happening, takes twice on e4, goes bishop d6. Yes, we just said this structure is unpleasant, and it still is unpleasant. Nothing changed in the 30 seconds. But black hasn't a healthy extra pawn on the a file now.
Yeah, very interesting. So let's say bishop g5, can I force you to go f6? Because this looks very risky. Right?
It does look very risky.
Rook
Yeah.
e1.
Also, we're being informed that rook takes a3 is currently favored by the Norwegian supercomputer. That would be an interesting thing to happen, and I'm not sure if Magnus is fully prepared for that. It's if rook takes a3 is played in this position, you have to assume that Levon knows this idea exists and Magnus probably doesn't. But I currently don't really understand why it would be so great. Like, black recaptures, and how do you... You have to assume the idea is to trap this queen on a3 somehow, but white needs so many moves for that to happen. I don't really understand how it would be achieved. Like, takes, what do you play? I tried making b4 works, but I think black can take. Knight takes d5, queen, even d6 I thought. Bishop b4, c5. No, this might be risky actually after d takes c5. This might be playable for white, but I guess queen f8 is safer.
Even here, what's the big deal? I understand.
I'm not sure. I was trying to, I don't know, knight e7 check. Let's try. Knight g5. This could be made. Knight takes h7. I don't know. This could be made.
My pieces are a little far.
Yeah, you're lacking some defenders. Yeah, even this. Queen h5. Oh no, Queen h5 actually was losing, but yes. Yeah. The bishop h7 seems very strong. Yeah, those would be very exciting lines to discuss. But also before there's currently after before no threat to the queen as far as I can tell. So you also have to refute d takes c4, for instance, or I don't know, a6, a5 is a move. There's a number of moves here which would need to be analyzed sort of beforehand, because if you don't know this works, it doesn't really look like it works. Would it look like it works to you if you were
No.
if you were completely on your own here as a white player? This is the first time you see this position. Although, actually, knight b1 might actually threaten to win the queen here. Okay, 5 knight b1. No, this actually wins the queen. Bishop b3, bishop c3 against any two moves. Okay, let's play dc4 then, because we need to take away the b3 square from the bishop. How does white actually collect? Because queen b1 doesn't really improve your prospects of catching this queen. Queen e2 is way too slow. Knight b1, queen a2, I currently don't see how you continue. Queen c1 maybe? But then c3 is probably quite strong. Knight d5 might be a move, but in general, let's start with c3. Create a square for the queen. It still looks slightly stuck on all these squares, but yeah. But I think that the major point is you need to know this works, because I don't think anyone plays this with white without some very serious prior preparation. And he has taken on a3.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you play a3, it will be with that idea probably, right?
Well, e4 was also not that stupid. But
I mean, he didn't just give the pawn, and
of course
he
not.
was going to have a
Of course
look
not.
around. So whatever he wanted to do,
Yeah.
he planned when he did this, and he plays c5, not b4. I was going to say we can try this and avoid dc4.
Yeah.
This is exciting.
But here I had other questions, because with the pawn on b3 you are currently not threatening to capture the queen, because on a2 it will have a reasonably safe harbor. So I thought b6 might be good, but maybe then you play knight b1, queen a2, queen c1, or b4. But I think queen c1 might be quite strong here, because knight c3 is now a very large threat.
Wow, we get action. Has the world champion blundered his queen? Luckily for all of us, I do still hold my degree from BLU, Body Language University. So I will be able to tell you in a minute after staring at Magnus and his full head of hair. He's calculating. He's not yet sure if he's blundered his queen or not.
He knows he's well, in some sort of trouble.
He knows he better pay some attention now.
Yeah. He knows. I mean, he obviously immediately understands this is not an over-the-board inspiration. But sometimes with these ideas, it's a check. Like white will happily do this, very happily do this, if he knows that with precise play, black can defend and make a draw somewhere. Good luck to any black player finding all the best moves in positions like this in a practical situation.
I would also believe that Levon is in fact out of book. He spent 20 minutes, and rook d8 really does not strike me as a move that you would check. But I would not be surprised if he knew this line, let's say, and then spent a bit of time trying to work out the differences and figured out the rook is not better on d8, so he can do the same thing.
That is a very likely scenario, actually. Yeah. Maybe rook d8 isn't in his exact preparation, but the difference between rook d8 and rook e8 in most of these lines is not going to be great, because it doesn't seem like that rook will be playing a large part. And in fact, you could maybe make even an argument for rook e8 being slightly better for black, because
That's what I'm saying. It's
no,
more
but
natural.
queen a5, queen d8.
That also,
Yeah, you could in that position play queen e5, knight takes d5, and then queen d8, and white would get very serious positional compensation. Right. But it would at least be an option black could explore. Whereas with the rook on d8, this no longer really makes any sense whatsoever.
Your boy CP Kauter points out the same thing, that with the rook on e8, queen a5 would be possible now. Well, this time around it is not. So what does Magnus do? Let's try to find some way not to lose a queen. Knight e4 I'm not happy with. But let's see what happens.
Yeah, 94 is one of the first things you consider here because it immediately sort of joins the fight to free the queen from the cage.
My problem is I think I might be even worse, or I might even be worse here.
Yeah, that I think is a very large part of the equation because black is left with such horrible pieces that this type of position with white is a full exchange down. But yeah, most of black pieces are tremendously unattractive here. Just queen c2 and play on the king side. And the queen is still stuck. You have to mention that the queen is still very much stuck. It's not being caught in the next two moves, but it's still on a3 doing absolutely nothing.
Wow, Levon Aronian in the confessional. If somebody out there is watching Norwegian TV and can keep us posted on what Levon said in the confessional, we'd be grateful, because we are not watching that.
That could be very, very relevant as to what's going on in this game, because but it is one of the more striking opening ideas I've seen in a while. A very weird waiting move, bishop c2, which you don't really expect to happen, followed by a sudden switch of gears, because bishop c2 looks like...
Bishop c2, yeah. Well, you've mentioned the idea, but it makes perfect sense once you see it, because otherwise bishop d6 is a very logical next move for black as well. But here you really need this d takes c4.
Yeah.
Winning a tempo, and if b takes c4, e5 idea, which you don't have with the bishop on c2. So I like it. I'm still surprised. Well, maybe Magnus did not think this a3, rook takes a3, was a threat. Well, I'm surprised it worked, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Very, very interesting developments in that game, and I have to say, we might be, thwarted by reality later in the day yet again. But this does look like your 5 draws prediction is not looking. Well, it doesn't look particularly safe right now because there's a very unbalanced, I think, position in the Caruana-Kramnik game. There is a reasonably sharp Sicilian in the Nakamura MVL game, and then we have this game, which could potentially just be bad for black, objectively, already by move, whatever it is, 13. b6, we were going... I had an idea, and then I forgot it again. That's a bit annoying. I think knight b1... Before is a move, but I think we were going knight b1, queen c1. And not liking it very much for black. Although there's knight e4 there, maybe it's a better edition in which to play knight e4.
The point is you're planning to go here after, let's say, bc5, I'm guessing.
I'm not even sure this wins as well. Now you can play knights in queen a5 and queen a2 and hope this somehow holds, but it's not very attractive for black. Might be playable now. Yeah, b6 and knight e4 are probably the first, the two early front runners here for move. Just to briefly mention, in the current position, you would maybe consider taking on c5 if you could be sure that white takes. But knight b1 preserves this pawn, and the queen is still stuck, so that's not a move you want to make. If dc5 queen c5 was forced, I probably would still pick white because the bishop on c8 is so horrible. But it would at least become a topic of discussion, because if black actually starts, if e6 e5 happens at any point in that game, black is suddenly looking very nice. But
if I'm interpreting the chat correctly, the computer move in this position is the move b5, not the first move that comes to mind by any stretch, because it doesn't do anything to free your queen.
Yeah.
But apparently he wants to go b4, which would make this square accessible. Maybe also free the e4 square for the knight.
And also something extremely mysterious connected with rook b8 was also mentioned in chat.
That makes no sense. He's not going to play rook b8. No. b5, I can understand the idea, but rook b8 is...
But frankly, both of these moves, I would say, are not... It's very difficult to immediately convince yourself these are the best options available to black.
No, he's going to take his time, but
yeah, absolutely.
I would not bet, if b5 is the only move here, I would not bet against Magnus finding it. Like, he's going to calculate whatever, b6, knight e4. He doesn't like it.
No, of course, but I mean, if you compare b6 and b5, your eye is drawn to b6 much more than it is to b5 because you want to start breaking this pawn chain up. And b5 kind of passes because before knight a4 the queen is still stuck and there you don't really have any pieces to challenge the knight on a4. So
okay, well, what does white do? I guess
queen
the
b1.
point is that we go here.
Let's say I go queen b1, and I create now. I thought I create a threat, but actually I don't. Maybe knight a2 is a threat now, followed by bishop c1. And before knight a4, I think that it actually is game over for the queen.
Yeah, b4 is not the way to do it. So if knight e4 is just very ugly, even if I take twice.
If I take twice, I think black is almost lost because I will win either the c6 pawn or the h7 pawn, and I will have all the previous pluses of my position plus one more pawn. No,
looks horrible. Maybe now you have to take, but it's not very awe-inspiring either.
But bishop c1.
C1, queen,
queen a5, no, queen a5 before.
Queen b4.
Queen before knight a2. You still don't even win that pawn. And I will actually drive your queen to a5 and then play b4. And yeah, this is
this is bad. Like
just
you keep the queen, but the position is.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if BC or DC.
Yeah, if these actually are the positions black has to aim for, this is not much fun. This is not much fun at all.
Might not look bad on paper. We have a rook and I guess 2 pawns against 2 minor pieces, but this bishop is terrible, and white will develop such an initiative on the king side that I don't think these pawns are enough compensation. Even DC might be good, I'm not sure you can take.
This is, the general policy of this stream is not to quote engine lines at you, but in a position as sharp and as concrete as this, I think it makes sense to, have concrete knowledge. And people in chat who are watching the Norwegian supercomputer analyze this are saying that b5 is strictly the only move and everything else loses. Which, this is not a good situation for Magnus.
No, especially, I'm reading out b5 plus 0.89, which looks like an evaluation you would give for such a position.
Yeah, something like that.
This looks like a +1 situation. And if this is the best you can get, he's not going to be having a lot of fun.
Oh no, okay. B6 is also plus.
B6 and B5 have the same evaluation. That refutes my point.
That's a bit strange.
You would get this position.
Yeah. But in general, the fact that the sacrifice is correct doesn't surprise me a great deal because, as we mentioned, Lev may not have looked at this precise position after rook d8, but he definitely knew the idea of following bishop c2 with a3 exists. And he is going for something, either this exact position or something very, very similar.
Yeah, this all looks like pretty bad news for Magnus. And let's not forget, Magnus so far has 50% 3 draws, so if he were to lose this game, fall down to -1 in, well, his home tournament it is not, but in a tournament in his home country, he wouldn't be pleased.
No, and his record in Norway chess tournaments is not what you would expect. I think he was maybe second twice. Then he had an absolute stinker in 2015, I believe, and he finally won it at the 4th time of asking last year, right?
Yes.
Which is, I mean, he did win it, but by his standards, winning 1 out of 4 is really not that great.
No, and that's been the narrative for most of 2017 as well, that he's still playing good chess, but for his standards, not winning Vaikanze, not winning Granke chess, not winning the World Rapid and the World Blitz, not winning the World Championship match in the classical portion are, not results that satisfy him. And of course, the pressure grows with every non-tournament victory. This one, he's played b6.
He's already played b6. That I do find very surprising because he is not really short on time yet. And although we did mention that b6 is, in human terms, is by far the most natural move in the position, I would expect him to spend more time on this because potentially this very easily could be the most important decision he has to make in the remainder of that game. So That was fast.
So what's gonna happen after b6?
I'd probably start with knight b1, although starting with b3, b4 is not a stupid idea either, I think. If you play b4, you create once again this threat of knight b1, which wins on the spot. I think b4 might be decent. Kind of depends on whether black can take, and after knight takes d5, go, well, somewhere, I don't know, a3, b2, some square like that, but it might actually still get caught there, like bishop b4, bishop b3, bishop c3. But I like the final touch there. I don't see how it actually gets captured. We can chase it around on these squares for as much as we like, but we can't seem to actually...
The problem in all these lines is white is not even a lot of material down. So
Yeah,
sometimes knight e7, knight takes c6,
Yeah,
some
but
knight
also,
jumps might just crash.
I'm also wondering if I can just play bishop c3, queen a3, take on f6 and go queen c2 and say you have nothing against the threat of rook a1.
That looks pretty good.
Because honestly, I don't see any reply to the threat of rook a1 here. I can still play rook a1, bishop f5, rook takes a3. This is a technically winning position. Not even particularly difficult, I think.
No. Here with the two minor pieces against the rook.
And also the structure collapses. It's very bad for black that the pawn is already on e5, because now he will have to start actually opening up the white bishops.
I'm reading there's a discussion about the Chess24 engine in the chat. I don't know how strong it is, but I do know that it's pretty strong like all the engines are. It's not the Norwegian supercomputer. It probably still has like a 3000 level, so
no, but the argument people were making there, I think, is just factually incorrect. It is absolutely the same engine that Sese is using. It's just that Sese is a piece of hardware dedicated specifically to this one task, and it's a very, very serious piece of hardware. It's not about software anymore. I think Sese also runs Stockfish. Just as
most people run Stockfish. 8 these days is just, or I don't know which one it is, but on how many cores it is run, of course.
But for a web engine,
question.
For a web engine which is provided for everyone who is accessing the broadcast at the same time, it obviously cannot dedicate the same amount of power to calculating the current position. So.
Yeah, I always find it a bit intriguing. Like, of course, I'm guilty of this as well. But when people say, how dare you give me the evaluation of a 3150 player when I could get the 3180 player? But yeah, let's end this. On this show, we are trying. First of all, I should speak a little less loud, I guess. I don't know. On this show, we're trying to do it without the engine. So all you have is the evaluation of a 2760 player, which... Are you even 2760?
No.
2750. Yeah. But he has all the best words to explain it to you, which the engines still can't do. You do have the best words, don't you?
Well, I do have words. I'm currently somewhat speechless.
Why?
It's been a difficult start to the day.
Why?
For a number of reasons. I'm not...
You want to give one reason?
I'm still somewhat ashamed at my failure to properly finish the broadcast yesterday.
Oh, stop worrying about that. Come on.
Plus, I couldn't really do anything about that. It's Jan who does all the tech stuff when things break down, and the people who have to...
It's not on me. Don't say that. Jan doesn't do anything around here.
You do all the fixing. The breakages are not on you. The fixing kind of is, and I just sit here looking even stupider than normal. But
well, you do all the chess thinking. I promise. I won't get into that. So you're very much valued around here. Don't beat yourself up. Levon Aronian might beat up Magnus Carlsen, who might in turn beat himself up. Should that happen?
That's a very smooth segue there. I'm liking b4 for now, because knight b1 I don't see how that wins, and b4 creates a very strong threat, actually stronger than knight b1 does, I believe. Lev will take some time checking, obviously, because the game could very easily be just decided in the next couple of moves here. Let's try knight e4 here. Because I think if we wait for any longer, it might become completely unplayable. It looks sort of unplayable even here, but maybe we can make it work somehow. So I think we take
We
twice.
can't trap the queen, so we better take here. Probably with the knight first, right?
Yeah, knight and bishop I think looks very logical because you create a threat of bishop takes c6, after which you no longer really have to capture that queen. You're just probably, winning because your structure in the center and on the queen side is so strong. And yeah, it was...
The queen is so dumb.
Yeah, if you have to play bishop b7, you really haven't solved any of your issues and the queen is still stuck. And yeah, this looks...
You start staring at bishop h7 ideas as well.
But also,
I don't think it works yet.
But also like queen b1, knight f6, bishop c2, you possibly could still go after the queen. Or queen c2, bishop c3, rook a1. Yeah, both of those things.
I was wondering if... Yeah, this we can't do yet.
No, yeah, but bishop d3. Bishop d3, I guess black plays a5. Because black really urgently needs to start doing something about that queen situation. To stop bishop c3 and rook a1.
Yeah, this doesn't work, so there's still drama.
There's
Knight e5, ab...
knight c4, queen a2, yeah.
This works for black.
There's life in the old dog yet, as they say, but...
How old is the old dog these days? He's 25, 26? He's insanely young whenever I check.
Yeah, he is young, but...
26,
I think it's more about the Slav and his position here than him particularly. He is, it is very unlikely anyone will describe him as an old dog for a while yet. But his position can be likened to one, occasionally.
How did we get here? We had this, which looks insanely tempting for white. But if nothing bad happens, a5 is a nice idea.
Yeah, if a5 happens against more or less anything we play, which I currently think...
Let's try this.
Yeah, this is why I wanted queen b1, but then I realized it doesn't really create the threat I thought it was creating, like knight f6, bishop c2. I still don't threaten to capture the queen, and b4 has been played in the meantime, so no real surprise there. I thought bishop c1 was winning the queen, but it goes to c3, and it still cannot be captured on c3 either. So black has a move here. It's not obvious what that move is, but... Black has a move.
If white a move, he also has
such
ideas.
Yeah, knight e5 c4 is a very, very strong idea here.
And the point of having the queen here is that a5 we can just take.
Yeah, and there's no recapture possible because this bishop on b7 gets in the way. And actually, this creates a threat of bishop b4, which would win on the spot. So it's arguably counterproductive to play a5 in this position. Let's try b takes c5, maybe. Ah, but this is, it holds still. B takes c5 and bishop b4, and I'm not in time with my rook b8, bishop a8 counterplay. This is just resigns. No, this is looking very, very grim, frankly, for black. Maybe we did it wrong in the previous line. Can we try queen b4 again? But after knight takes d5, I want to avoid placing the queen on a2 at all times. Like I play queen, choose a square, a3. You go bishop b2, I go queen b2. I never allow you to play bishop b3 with tempo. Does that change anything? But here maybe even something like knight f6, queen d2 might be close to winning with the threat of bishop takes h7 check.
Oof, new problems. As if I didn't have enough.
Yeah. No, I
start with this? Just to
you
keep
can,
my options,
yeah, you
or?
can, definitely.
I don't
maybe
think
knight
queen sacrifices today.
For a second there I thought maybe knight e4 is a move here.
Knight e7.
But knight 7, king f8 and something will... Even just collecting on b6 with check in the end there probably wins. Like bishop e4, queen d2, knight d2, king... No, but here maybe...
Black's still kicking.
Sort of, yeah, king f6 I guess or something. It's not a particularly nice position, but
Still
maybe
looks
you can
fantastic
play,
for white, but somehow not the max.
Yeah, maybe this is not the absolute best he can achieve. But knight f6, queen d2 does look very promising because black now needs to spend the tempo of dealing with this. Let's say queen king h8. After king h8, even knight e5 kind of wins. Yeah. Okay, but here bishop c3 I thought was just sort of winning because the queen. Well, this squares dropping out of my. Yeah, that is less winning than I thought. Okay, let's start with knight e5 instead. But this is a bit less concrete than I felt, because I thought bishop c3 was winning, and if it's not, then I can play, I don't know, knight d5 here, rook b1, queen a2, and pretend that the game is still ongoing.
Now read in the chat, 10 bishop c2 looks less silly now. I don't think we ever said it was silly. We just did not understand the idea at first.
Yeah.
But we've pointed out by now that the point is whenever this bishop goes away, you can go e4, against which the typical reaction with the bishop on d3 is takes, followed by e5, which you can't do anymore. And it also prepares this a3, which otherwise, as you mentioned, could be quite well met with this. And once again, e4 is what white wants.
No, it had taken us a while to figure out why the move is required at all, but we did get there eventually.
I have a feeling rook d8 is, not the critical reply. Of course, hindsight helps there a bit. I don't know, b6 could be an idea maybe to stop all these c5 ideas. Rook e8, but certainly very interesting play by Lev on Aronian, that much we can.
Very, very interesting bit of homework being shown to us today, and excitement. Apparently queen b2 is strictly the only move in this position, not a move you necessarily think of. Wasting a full tempo, slightly improving the position of your queen. Not even obviously improving the position of your queen, just changing the position of your queen, I think is a fairer description of what you're doing there. Yeah, that will be a difficult move to make, if it is in fact the best option black has here.
Let's do a brief tour, of course.
Sure.
We'll come back
Yeah,
to this game.
we will have to stay
There's
with this
others going on.
for until some kind of a conclusion is reached. But there are a lot of other exciting games today. Korana Kramnik is very sharp for an anti-Berlin. And this really does, it brings back memories of Vlad beating people left and right with the Sveshnikov. It's not really the same structure at all, but it's the type of a dynamic counterplay with a ruined structure, which he was excellent at when he was playing the Sveshnikov full time.
People forgot that dude from the 90s who played the Sveshnikov, the Semi-Slav, all the sharpest lines, the Richter, Rauser, some goofy Sicilians. We only think of him as Mr. Berlin, Mr. Petrov, but he's had, more evolutions than, I don't know.
Feels like the knight
Red
needs to go to some weird squares like c2 or f1. Maybe f1 looks horrible. I think it's c2 more likely than not.
For starters, AB not a good idea because here
you can maybe go
knight is under
knight
attack.
here, but maybe he is looking at that on king f1. But that would be extremely strange. Even bishop b6 simply, b takes c6 and something like f5.
It's another Facundo.
Yeah. Well, you do pick up on f2, but your king on f1 will be stuck on f1 for a while, and when black takes on f6, he is not even a pawn down. So you are committing to a position you might not like very early on. Yeah, very, very sharp position. And if he goes knight c2 in the current situation, black can play a6 if he is conservative, but I feel Vlad will play b4 here. a6 feels a bit pedestrian. Not because of anything wrong with it, but I just don't like the idea of white having the option of trading a pair of rooks.
I like black's position here. Is that crazy?
Yeah, I feel like it's very, very possible that black is slightly better here. Rook a d8, f5, king h8, rook g8. The moment the white king appears on g1, there's a lot of counterplay on the king side as well. Yeah, I like what Vlad is doing, and he also is still playing very fast, and time will be an issue here. Fabi is down to 36 minutes by move 15.
Fabi likes spending time, but he was surprised in the opening by this gf, and Kramnik is making this look like a forced win, like pushing his f-pawn up the board. Impressive stuff.
People are asking if white can trade the queens and be better in an ending. I guess he is referring to queen g4 check. I have a feeling this knight gets lost. But maybe f5 a b5, I missed that.
Don't we have time to, no, BA?
No, but then knight f6 check, and actually knight g7.
Okay.
So this is very relevant. But maybe queen g4 check. Maybe you can play queen g6. This is another move which I originally failed to consider. And hope to win half a tempo somewhere. This does give us white the option of taking and playing knight d5, which is a square that wasn't available earlier. But I'm not sure how great this is. Could be playable though.
Looks better than everything else we've seen.
Yeah, it does. It does look like a definite improvement over the previous line we were discussing. Black could, yeah, but once again, knight f6, knight d7 is a threat. I was about to suggest that black can maybe play b4 here and play for compensation, but it costs a full exchange. Here, rook f6, rook ac8, rook fd8, I wouldn't be so unhappy, but knight f6, knight d7 just picks up a full exchange, and then white will be better. Yeah, queen g4 check, I somehow ruled out because I thought this knight gets lost, but if it doesn't get lost, it's very certainly a possibility for white. AB, yeah.
This knight doesn't have good square.
No, the problem
any
is,
square white takes here.
Yeah, the problem is you actually have
Stabilizer.
to trade the knight on g4 for the knight on c6 there, which is horrible for black because it also gives white this fantastic square on e4 for the other one. This is close to winning for white.
So Fabi's still in business. Queen g4 check, very nice idea.
Yeah.
Okay, go here.
Yeah, but that's not really a structure you wanted. Like takes, knight c2. Now white can be reasonably safe in assuming that if he ever stabilizes, he will be a lot better with this knight on e4 being completely unchallenged. Quite like this.
A lot better sounds strong. Oh yeah, he's fine. Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's not an unreasonable. I mean, the knight on c2 is stupid. Maybe I should look for a better square. If this was on any other square, I'd be very happy with my evaluation with it. Before knight e4 bishop e7, because the knight is so stupid, it might still be playable for black. But king e1, king e2, knight e1, knight f3. Imagine the same position with knight on f3.
Well, no argument there.
Yeah. And queen g4 check has been played, so a very good spot by Chat actually. Chat rescued us a little bit. I was talking complete nonsense.
Nakamura MVL is your typical sharp knight off, I would guess.
Yeah. And the plans sort of progressed along the lines we were describing. Black did manage to trade off the dark square bishops on the g5 square. And also he already has the f5, e4 structure on the king side, which is very, very nice. But Hikaru managed to get the queenside advance that white is aiming for. And the knight on g7 is a bit misplaced. If black had two active knights here, I think I would be very happy picking black. But with the knight on g7 kind of lacking for moves a little bit, I'm not sure who is better. Because I want to play knight e5 and just completely ignore the center and give mate, but I think I would need more active pieces than I actually have here with black for that to happen. What do you think? How would you react to knight e5?
No idea.
Like there is knight b5, knight takes d6. At least white can try knight b5 and knight takes d6. There's also c6 as a possible move, trying to create a very far progressed passed pawn. And let's explain why taking on c5 twice is impossible. That's kind of relevant here. I think maybe saying it's impossible is a bit.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because I have moves like this.
Yeah, we can play rook d3, but I guess white is still better because there's a passer you can use, like rook c7.
Yeah, this knight is a little far away from the action.
Yeah, you need to start bringing it in. What you're drawing is very, very relevant. It's probably the best chance black has. But here d6, queen b3 is like you can no longer play knight h4 because white actually gives mate with checks. Queen b3, queen c3, queen g7 mate it happens faster than you think.
Yeah, the black king is too open. This doesn't work.
I don't think this will work out. Black is too far away from creating any actual threat.
So what else can Maxim do? Queen f6, knight b5 does not help.
No, it doesn't. No, I think you kind of need to go all in somehow here. Let's look at knight e5 because if knight b5, maybe I can go rook a2 and rook d2. Maybe in some positions. C takes d6 doesn't really worry me a great deal. I'm a lot more worried about c6 or knight takes d6, one of those two.
I'm wondering if I can spend a move, but you can maybe just go rook a8.
Rook a8 or maybe a 4 f3 will become a topic of conversation there. Takes f4, maybe even immediately. You might have to play f3. But then knight f5, knight e3. This looks
problem.
Yeah. No, it's a very, very big mistake to underestimate just. And knight e5 actually is on the board, so I was correct in what Maxim would be leaning towards in these types of positions. And I also want to mention that the knight on c3 is kind of important because for the time being it stops f5, f4. So let's try c6. But the drawback of c6 is that it doesn't really require an immediate reaction, maybe. So you can try something like knight h5, maybe.
I was wondering about this.
Yeah, I think I would be, if not for the fact that my queenside is dead, I would be quite happy with this structure change with black, because knight d3 is now a move you constantly have to calculate. Knight b5, rook h3 might win. That's a nice geometrical idea. Yeah, followed by knight f3 check and sudden mate on the other side of the board. You know, this is...
What's going on here if I start with
this is the question. This is what they both, I think, will be trying to figure out. If black is in time with his definite counterplay on the king side here to play against the c pawn. But here, I mean, if we're extremely unhappy with black, we can slow down and play something like rook c8, knight b5.
I was wondering if this rook h3 business still makes sense. It's a weird position.
But here I can play king h1, because in the other game, in the other position, I was hoping to go rook takes h2 here.
I was still hoping to.
Well, but here after knight g4, I will snap. Oh no, you can. Here I have king h3, and if you start with queen h4, then I will take on g4. Because it's important that you have no queen f4 check in this position, and this looks winning for white. Does it? Not so sure anyway, but probably does, yeah. And fg3 now to rub it in a little bit.
This is fine because black doesn't have a square.
Yeah.
g7, knight f5. If you take, this is check, and king f7, fg. It's a bit of a problem because we're pinned.
Yeah, you would like to take with the f pawn, but it's not allowed by the laws of chess, which is a drawback.
Not forced, but just to show there is
nowhere near
stuff.
forced, of course. Yeah, but
Bubbling.
the game really is sharpening up today. This one, and also the Giri Anand game progressed towards a very interesting position where Vishy did play bishop g4. Although Anish decided not to play d4 at all. Anish went with a much slower progression. After rook e8, we left this on move 11 after rook e8, and Anish played a4 followed by, and Vishy did play b6, which is somewhat gratifying, and now d3. And Vishy played bishop g4 and allowed white to collect this bishop for a knight, whilst weakening his
This
king.
is still not an obvious decision to me.
No,
g4,
not
knight
at
h4.
all.
Like, it's hard to use your two bishops if you never do this, because then you can't really activate. But still, it's quite committal.
Yeah. The bishop has been transferred over to g2
This helps,
to of course, make sure that the king side is a lot more protected. But the bigger question is, yeah, black has plans. This is one plan, but it does allow a4, a5, which will make it will give white targets. It will open the a file for the a1 rook, and the pawn on b6 will become weak. So that's one thing. The other thing I wanted to say is, if black, let's say, just goes knight a5 and says pass, not committing to passing for the rest of the game, but just says, where exactly are you planning to open this structure up? I'm not sure if I know the answer off the top of my head. Maybe f4, but f4 is very double-edged.
But knight a5 is asking for it, isn't it?
It is asking for it a little bit, yeah. Maybe it's not, yeah, with knight a5. I can still play... No, f4 is very strong. I was wondering if knight a5 creates an idea of e5, e4, but not after f4, because fg5 just wins, and gf, ef, e4 also probably loses to g5.
Yeah, that feels...
No, that's how you normally get mated in these positions. You open,
playing with fire.
yeah, you give both bishops a lot of scope, and then you shouldn't be surprised when something bad happens on the king side.
All right, this would qualify as a very interesting game on any other day, but not on the weekend, not on Saturday, because we have action everywhere else. Let us, except for the soul kayaking game, maybe.
Yeah, the Soul Karakin game is still following very closely to what Karakin had in a number of games in New York. But we'll get to that eventually. It's not urgent enough for us to not discuss the Carlsen Aronian position.
And knight to e4 has been played. Knight takes, d takes e, bishop takes e4. So far, so bad for Magnus, who faces another decision.
Yeah, bishop b7 is what we were discussing, because the idea of giving up on c6 is just very unattractive. But maybe you have to play a5 here. I'm beginning to think that you just don't have tempi available to defend pawns here. You need to try and undermine this structure as early as possible.
Let's rehash bishop b7.
We were going queen b1, and we...
First of all, just once this is asking a bit much of the position, yeah?
King g6. We probably don't have enough pieces attacking to make this work. Although even this is a very...
with the stuff, but yeah, knight f6, knight h5.
Queen g3, knight h5, queen g4, f5. Yeah, you could...
Well, yeah. Best we can get is a draw.
Yeah, you need more pieces.
We don't believe you. You need more pieces. Yeah, not quite there, but just to show even such nonsense is lurking. So queen b1.
Yeah, after queen b1 we were struggling to make moves from black.
What did we do? Probably knight f6.
We played knight f6, bishop c2, and I was very unsure how black extricates himself from that. Maybe not play knight f6, because actually knight f6 allowed knight e5 in so many
F5
positions.
is so ugly. Like,
But also, after bishop c2,
plans.
your situation is not really drastically improved. Once again, white is not threatening to win the queen in 2 moves as far as I can see, but white has such tremendous positional compensation. And also,
Here just bishop b3.
yeah, bishop b3 or knight g5 or something. f5 is a very, very weakening move. Maybe something like h6 simply. And so as not to give you the e5 square, but also not to, create very many new weaknesses. But rook c1, c3 might be very strong.
Where do you go? You go to a4?
No, I was planning to go to c3 and try and survive like this, but
yeah, not gone yet.
no. Now rook c1 appears to be very strong, but once again it goes to a4 and b5, and I cannot currently figure out how to capture it on those 2 squares, but there might be a way.
So let's make a
Yeah, let's
pass.
play rook b8. Queen a4, we can repeat. White always will have a draw in these positions, yeah. But after queen a4, you feel like, taking this draw is a bit premature. Like queen c1 maybe? I'm actually very happy with this decision because I think it wins.
Must be nice. So
Rook a3 against any move, basically. Including queen takes before, we actually capture it on before. We don't chase it, we just capture it there and then.
Pretty.
Yeah, no, this is a very, very difficult position for black to navigate. Let's go back and try and play a5 in the current position. I think you probably need to start doing something drastic.
So first question is, was this a real threat or do we have bigger fish to catch?
No, it's definitely a real threat, but whether there's anything stronger is... But I think... No, but b5 maybe is...
This looks nice.
bc knight... Ah, there's c7 in the end there. It's just lost. We win a rook. Yeah, that probably... Okay, well spotted.
Game continues.
Yeah, I probably still like white, but that's an important resource. Takes...
Best position black has had all day.
Yes.
Might still be in trouble, but...
Most assuredly, this is the best we've seen black survive so far.
So let's do better. A5, B5 look very tempting. Takes.
Well, if we want to take with the bishop, we can do it
Yeah.
before playing b5. So I think it has to be connected with bc6, knight f6, and we can look here. But once again,
C7.
hard to imagine c7 not being the best move in this position.
Quite correct.
Yeah. Not taking the rook also looks weird. So we get here, and white is of course still the side pressing, but like queen c1, black has some 5 against 4 options, and also maybe after queen c1, rook c1, you can play c takes d4. I'm not sure it loses. Looks risky, but black does have his own outside passed pawn, so
Yeah, maybe knight c7 you might survive.
yeah, it's not fun, but it's probably not lost. Yeah, this position, whichever piece you take on a5. 5 against 4, they are generally problematic, but it's with the opposite color bishops, so drawing resources will be quite large.
I read in the chat that Fabiano is winning now, so we will have a very brief look at
I think
what's going on there.
winning maybe is a bit strong, but he is probably winning some material because, as we mentioned, both ab5 and knight f6, knight d7 are very large threats. I think it's more about that than about the fact that the c7 pawn is hanging. I think the c7 pawn is not very, very relevant here.
Kramnik left the board, both guys did. But yeah, we've seen this position before.
We've seen this, yeah. We were not really concentrating on it very hard because we have other games to consider. But it seems like Fabiano solved some of the opening issues that Vlad was trying to pose. And you have to wonder if f4 in the previous move, well, not the previous move, but when it was played, if it was absolutely forced. Because I couldn't really see why Black just didn't play b4 on move 15. If you could just briefly mention that.
Sorry?
a4 on move 15. I think maybe Vlad underestimated how strong
queen g4 check.
how strong queen g4 check is, because you can play b4. I understand that he wanted to drive the knight away to poor squares, because now it has the c4 square. But still, you play rook a8, rook f8 next, and you have a very, very mobile pawn structure. The pawn on d3 is a target.
Also, is a6 so bad?
a6, I was kind of worried queen f3 might be strong at some positions, because then, but okay, f4 is an improvement already, because b5 will not be hanging. A b5 here? No, sorry. I'm trying to do some weird X-ray via sort of through the knight on c6. That's not how chess works. Yeah, knight d5, knight d5, but this feels very risky for white as well. If it somehow backfires, you will regret placing your knight on a square where it cannot really be protected by anything.
Who knows, but yeah, Fabi, winning might be a bit strong. Still, Blake needs to move. This is a threat. So yeah, all I needed to do was predict 5 draws, and look what we got. Bloodshed, left, right, and center.
Yeah. I think we should be very, very grateful to your little bit of pessimisms pre-round, because...
What do you mean pessimism? 5 well-played draws, some nice theoretical discussions, both sides shake hands without a single mistake. It's my type of chess. But no luck today. These combative players, Naidorf, weird opening ideas, sacrificing exchange by Lev on Aronian. I will not stand for it. And Anish has played f4.
Even though knight d7 is of course a lot better equipped to deal with f4 than knight a5, this doesn't look nearly as horrible as the line I was suggesting earlier. But this is still... yeah, this is what you should want to be doing with the two bishops on b2 and g2. You need diagonals for them. You need open files for your rooks.
And Zitter in the chess chat is asking the wrong question, in my opinion. He asks why everyone talks so much about Pramod. And the question should, of course, be either why does Pramod talk so much, or why don't people talk more about Pramod? But not why do they talk so much about Pramod. That doesn't make any sense to me.
I think it's a bit too early in the day, and this is a bit too exciting of a day of chess for us to start on a usual round of Pramod bashing. But
Well, I didn't mean to do any Pramod bashing. I'm just quoting the chat.
yeah, we're very happy you're here, Pramod. Please,
Wouldn't go that far either.
yeah, please pose us some very difficult questions, as you are generally very prone to do.
One difficult question is, can Geary really pull off the purple shirt? Like, only the Joker looks good in purple, Anish. Don't trust Zoppico with all the crazy shirt colors she brings home.
I like purple shirts. Well, more pink though, more pink than purple.
Or maybe lavender, as these metrosexuals like to call that color?
Yeah, I don't go into those, no. Lavender and mauve and all the rest of it. Those are very difficult too.
Isn't that what he's wearing? Isn't that lavender? I don't know how to pronounce that or what it is. Some type of flower would be my best guess.
It is, a type of flower.
And all of this, of course, is meant playfully because Anish, arguably the best dressed player in chess, and arguably even after his recent rating losses, the strongest pound-for-pound player on the planet. But that's more arguable. I'm not sure.
Fabi is also not.
Fabi's there.
Yeah, I think it's probably between them two, because the rest are larger.
Yeah, I was thinking if maybe some female player could enter that conversation, but it's not very polite to discuss female players' weights, so I did not pursue that.
We shall not do that. Yeah, and Hikaru did play c6.
As expected.
As somewhat expected. We were discussing knight h5 here, which is not at all forced. You have other options available to you, but the eye is sort of drawn to it because you need to improve more of your pieces. You're kind of the rook on a3 is very nice. The knight on e5 is fantastic. The queen on g5 is where it should be, but you're still somewhat stuck as to how to develop your initiative further here with black. And the knight on g7 needs to join the action somehow.
We're being informed that lavender, I forgot the pronunciation already, is pale purple, while Anish is bold purple. Thanks, Danger Mao. So what's going on here?
I still like knight h5. I'm not sure if it works, but I would like to make that move here.
Very natural.
What
else you can't do with it?
Yeah, I can't really find anything else that even remotely appeals. You can play something like rook c8, trying to bait white into taking on b7, but you just play b5 and...
Also after knight b5, how confident are you that all your counterplay will win?
That's a very good point. I mean, with the pawn already on c6, you really need to be very, very certain you will be in time. And with the bishop still alive on e2, that's actually a second reason why you want to play knight h5. Because the bishop on e2 makes a very, very good job of protecting potential danger squares like f2 and f3 and g4. Yeah, I think knight h5 is a very, very serious front runner here for black's next option.
Mr. Self-Defeat says Levan Aronian has the best style in his opinion. Yeah, he has his own style for sure. Also very bright shirt colors. A lot of lime green.
Yeah. There was a period where I used to do some of that, but no more.
Mr. Fabi, playing it safe when it comes to clothing. Blue jacket, white shirt. What's not to like?
And Vladi played rook ad8, which I think is very, very logical because, as we mentioned, knight f6, knight d7 was the threat that needed to be diffused the most. Yeah,
I'm still trying to figure out what this mysterious stuff is that Kramnik has with him every day.
Yeah, this
doesn't look like chocolate.
This I haven't seen before. This, I think, the box is tea. I'm fairly sure this is tea.
Ah, so you think this is hot water and he has some
that
fancy green tea in here?
Yeah, and that probably is some kind of an energy bar next to
it is
it.
whatever. Sorry, but you did not want to hear that.
Yeah, I've seen him make his own tea at the table. It's distracting, but good tea is perhaps worth it.
Worth distracting the opponent?
In particular, when it's distracting your opponent and not yourself, yes.
All right. There's some interesting general questions like which of the American players would have the best chance against Magnus in a match, but I think today we have the best chance at a lot of exciting games, so we shall postpone all the general discussions for after the time controller.
Yeah, rook a8 is very, very logical, and the two immediate options are ab5 and frankly ab5. You can also include knight f6 check. I'm thinking that maybe Fabio wants to include knight f6 check and then take on b5, because you want to drive the king to f6 where it will run into all kinds of forks. Yeah, even immediately.
This looks winning.
But after ab5, probably black goes knight somewhere, e7, knight fe4, I assume. Bishop b6, knight c4, but I don't want to. Maybe we shouldn't give up on d3. Yeah, f5, knight g5, king f6, knight h7 is a bit of a problem. I was planning to go king f6 here, but if black needs to waste a tempo on something like rook f6, I think white will probably stabilize.
Here it looks.
Knight c4. It looks very promising for white.
Troubled.
Looks very promising. Yeah, seems like something has gone slightly off the rails there for Vladi. We suspect f4 may not have been the best move in the position, but it's difficult to judge precisely. And Magnus played rook b8, which is...
Back to the Carlsen camp. But which Carlsen camp? We have 3 Carlsen camps, believe it or not. This is one. This is another. And... what's the color of Levon's shirt? Salmon?
Yeah, that's some kind of salmonish, orangey type color. Yeah, it's difficult to judge exactly, but I like it. It's sort of loud, but not very loud. It's I think by his standards, this is actually a very understated shot.
Yeah, this is toned down. Rook b8.
Yeah, it's sort of the same idea as the one we were discussing with a6, a5, trying to prepare for eventual queen b1s and so on, but without allowing a5, b5, which
also stopping out of this with tempo, of course.
Yeah. Okay, let's try and figure. It actually improves white's bishop takes h7. Because once the queen lands on g3, this rook will be hanging. I'm not sure if it's relevant or not, but I just want to bring this up. Queen g3, if you play knight h5, I can actually pick this rook up now. Game continues, you can take king takes g5, but I have a feeling c takes b6 just wins in this position.
This looks bad, yeah.
Yeah, because b7 is just such a huge threat. This is just, I think, game over, actually. There's no squares for this rook. This is curious. This is very curious, because this might mean that the sacrifice is just very strong.
Yeah, because this feels checkmatey. I haven't actually calculated it, but it looks very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
Then again.
Also queen c7, I think, wins the rook.
Whole rook?
Pretty much, yeah, because knight f7 check picks up a rook. Yeah, there is rook c8 there at the end, but I think queen takes b6, knight d5. You actually do win a piece back.
Hang on.
Maybe like queen
there has to be something.
f4, e5, some square, e5 in particular. I think the greater threat of knight takes e6, and then yes, here cb6, b7, b8 is difficult to stop once again. Bishop h7 is suddenly, very much a topic of discussion here.
Let's think. First of all, if black doesn't recapture, let's say king f8 or king h8, then white just has a long-term checkmating attack, which will
white is just better and not even behind on material. No, king takes h7 is the only move you need to be making here.
Yeah. g5, king h6 can be ruled out.
No. It's either king g6 or g8. Let's look at king g6 again.
Same thing.
Queen g4, maybe f5, queen g3 and king f4 is a move here. Maybe, but I mean, I'm giving away all these pawns and my king is still horrible, like queen f4, rook f8, king, queen g3. The issues remain.
Issues.
Yeah, the issues very much remain here. Like, yes, it's a rook, but the king is just so bad. And some material will be, I think, won back immediately because there's no square for the king. Like king f6 allows knight h7 check if there's nothing stronger, and there probably is something stronger. Black is so completely tied up that you feel like maybe even f4 followed by f5 could be quite strong. The one saving grace for black here is that e3, e4 is impossible because it allows a queen trade. Otherwise, I would be very tempted to just play e3, e4 immediately to include the bishop in the game. But I mean, even knight h7 actually wins so much material that it's probably the strongest move.
Looks fun.
We're getting slightly carried away. Yeah, looks very much like something that Levon will be thinking of. In the meantime, knight h5 and bishop takes h5 is already on the board in Nakamura MVL.
Don't care.
I sort of care, but
Care a little bit. All right, let's briefly check the Naka cam.
Yeah, just put it on the screen.
This is the cram cam. Where's the Naka cam? Here it is.
Yeah, MVL is not there, but he will take with the pawn, and then Hikaru will start thinking, because he is making a tremendous amount of progress on the queen side, but he needs to be sure he controls the counterplay correctly. But yeah, this is the important question of the day. I mean this, yeah.
Yeah, couldn't help. And yeah, GH blitzed out by Mr. MVL, of course. I could not help but reading the chat that informs us Engine says queen c2 is stronger than bishop h7.
Sure, but your eye is drawn to it, and also I just wanted, my initial excitement was based on the fact that rook b8 looks like a very useful move, but it is actually very relevant in the tactics that are happening on the other side of the board, and that bit of geometry was what I wanted to immediately mention when I spotted it. And Pramod actually asks a very good question, that after f5 queen g3, you don't have to play f4 to play king f6 later. You can play queen f6, king f6 immediately. And once again, you want to include the bishop in the attack, but both d5 and d4 don't seem to be giving white very much, because the black queen on a3 actually is a decent defending piece here. It's getting in the way of most of your more obvious continuations. White has a draw with knight h7 check here, king f7, knight g5. Black will not be able to avoid that repetition, but Levon is not going to go for a forced draw here. Levon must feel that he is doing extremely well. And
if we go here, we sacrifice a bit much, maybe. Yeah?
Queen takes a6, but yeah, knight f6. Knight f6. It probably runs away. Game is not. No, this here game is over. But I think after knight f6, queen f7, maybe the game is not. King h6, h7 anyway. Yeah. Now once the king reaches h7, we did give up a rook and a piece here, and we only have 3 arguably attacking pieces left. So no, not gonna work.
Yeah.
Okay, let's not that we're giving up here necessarily, but it feels a bit vague, right?
All right.
But actually no, because we will play e4 next move. Let's go king. What, king g6? We can even take on e6 here and create a threat of queen g5 check.
Yeah, it does.
Looks very strong.
Really scary.
Looks very strong. Yeah, queen h4 is a very serious move here. Well spotted. Bishop b7 maybe, hoping to go rook h8 next move.
No checkmates.
Well,
knight e4. You can run to f7 g8. No mate yet. That's bitter disappointment.
None that I can see, yeah. None that I can see. You can play e4, but after rook h8 you probably will run out of useful options.
Understood. Yeah. Maybe more fun to analyze than for Levon to actually give up another bishop.
So what's happening after queen c2, which is what people are claiming is the strongest move, yeah?
Yeah. Probably nothing in particular. What do we look at? H6? We
let's go h6, yeah.
Worst case scenario, white can always take and say I have good pieces, you have bad pieces.
But how true is that? Bishop takes c6, b takes c5. I would very much like to play bishop b7 here and hope I don't lose.
Okay, that's an honorable plan.
I am an honorable player.
Must be nice. Yeah, seems to work, no? c6, rook c7.
That's what I was hoping for, and
no kill.
no kill. And if there's no kill, then black will probably stabilize and be quite okay actually.
Okay, so let's try to do better. If we try to catch the queen.
Yeah, why weren't we doing that? Just wins.
One move at a time.
Just wins on the spot. Yeah, it needs to be stopped after queen c2. In fact, maybe black needs to already be taking on c5 here, or knight f6.
Now this, gains a bit in appeal. But we could also, what else could we do? Knight e5, knight e4. I don't really want.
Yeah, I would hate to part with that bishop so early.
And if here,
now we take on c5.
Takes, and chasing the exchange looks dumb.
It's not the exchange. We're threatening knight c4. It might be the best move in the position. But after c takes b4, knight c4, there is b3, which wasn't there previously. I mean, variation continues. Queen c3. Ah, sorry, I forgot. Yeah, this diagonal is now available. No, variation doesn't continue. My apologies. And if we have to take on c6, it's not what we want.
Feels like the wrong direction.
Yeah,
bishop b3, bishop b7.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happens there. Yeah.
So knight f6. What else is there? We can take bc.
And probably b actually, because I really don't like splitting up this structure. I think we need to be taking with the b pawn in most cases. But this is not that clear. Bishop b7 or rook b2 followed by bishop b7. This is not that clear at all.
Now the pieces are doing stuff at least.
Yeah, Lev, I think, with the sleeves rolled up, he really wants to take on h7. I feel like he is very much into the idea of taking on h7 here, because if it works, not only does he beat Magnus, he also beats Magnus by doing something extremely aesthetically pleasing.
Yep. F. Dreiser points out, it's funny how no human can possibly evaluate what happens after bishop h7 correctly compared to a supercomputer.
Not sure why the word funny was used in that sentence.
Me neither. It does help if you can calculate like 1 million positions per second. Not sure if that's the ratio, but they seem to be superior to puny humans nowadays in chess.
Yeah.
Even though there was a discussion recently, maybe it was Kasparov who said if Magnus wants to make a draw against a computer with white, he would manage. Which, I don't know, probably true.
That actually, and this may be a slightly sad state of affairs, but that actually is a very large statement.
Yeah. I'm also not sure.
Yeah.
Computers are pretty good.
Yeah. Fradetti is suggesting something very, very nice geometrically, but I don't think it works. Let's put this on the board for a second. Bishop h7. Knight g5, king g6, queen f3. It's a cute idea, but nobody
takes queen f7.
No e4 check.
What's going on?
Queen takes
picking up the queen. Huh?
Yeah,
I got it.
Yeah, that's very
nice.
witty for Fradetti. But I think, hang on, what I thought was a refutation is not a refutation.
What did you think?
I thought that, but queen g3 transposes to what I was actually trying to
this
get
is
very
the one
actively.
we want, yeah.
And he's already taken on h7. King takes h7.
Here we go.
Yeah. Lev. Dr. Lev. And yeah, to anyone who knows, how Levon operates, if queen c2 was winning on the spot, he probably would have played queen c2. In most other cases, once he sees this option is available, I think he just goes for it.
He's one of the few dudes, I'm never sure if it's 100% serious, but you can tell he does have the ambition of creating something beautiful whenever he has a chance. Like, creating art. And
Yeah.
Fradedi says it's the comp's first line. King g6, queen f3. Which Levan has probably spotted by now. Goes up, takes a little walk. So.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for pointing that out, Fradedi, because we weren't really getting there fast enough. Because once again, this is not a tactic you normally associate with bishop h7 and knight g5. It's only available here because of the weird queen on a3. And normally after king g6, you just automatically place it on g4 and then start thinking. So yeah, well spotted by the computer, unsurprisingly. The computer doesn't really care that much about patterns and...
LPDO, loose pieces drop off.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop staring at the chat for a while because I like the computer as much as the next guy, but let's try to figure out what's going on here. It's more fun.
King g6 hasn't been played yet, so...
King g8 is the other option.
Yeah, king g8 and then knight f6, I would guess, is the... Or maybe queen d3... No. Can you play queen d3 here?
I thought about this earlier, but I thought we can just take and take. What's going
Rook
on?
g8?
It's no checkmate here.
It's ugly, but
so
it's a whole rook. It's a whole rook, and if once the knight lands on f6, the position becomes far less clear optically.
I want to play this, but
yeah, I understand why you would. Queen takes d2 though. I can continue just piece grabbing here.
Yeah, queen h5, queen h6.
Yeah, it's a similar.
Knight f4, knight f6. Not really checkmating anybody.
Knight f4, knight f6. It looked close for a second, but yeah, I don't see it.
I don't get there. e5, you take.
Yeah, I don't think you get there.
So let's back it up. Of course, white has a draw if he.
White has the immediate draw.
Chooses.
You can also play maybe e4 here.
For here looks interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now rook g8 is less good.
And queen takes d2, just to point out, probably also allows a forced mate, I think. h5, h7, h8, g7, f7. Yeah, that's mate. That's mate. Okay, so queen d3, e4 doesn't seem to be an improvement, because if you waste the tempo and only achieve something, but that's not entirely true. The bishop is hanging, so knight f6 maybe is a better move now, because queen c7 we can just take on d2 maybe, either immediately or at some point in the future. But bishop f4,
b7,
queen g6. This is not ridiculous, because if I have enough time to go bishop e5, I will probably win. But queen takes d4 kind of worries me.
Yep. Sorry.
Bless you. Yeah, this
is a rook, which is a bit troublesome. If we get e5, we're in good shape, but maybe you can play this.
Maybe even e6, e5 is a move. Also, I can sort of take twice on d6. I'm not particularly happy about it, but I think I can. Because after knight f7, you've run out of attacking pieces a little bit.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean f4, but it's difficult to believe. With only 3 pieces left, it's difficult to believe this is mate. King g8 even, or maybe e6, e5 immediately. Yeah, it feels like black will survive this somehow.
What have we done to poor Levon's position? So king g8.
Apparently we figured out, in our first try, we actually figured out what the machine is suggesting black should do here, which is kind of impressive, I think. Knight f6 is the best move. In that line with the queen on c7 and knight on d8 is, chat is telling us, the line we need to be discussing.
Which one?
Queen h5, knight f6, and all the way to queen c7, bishop d7, knight f7 check, all of that apparently is very relevant. Once again, here you kind of want to play f4, but the feeling is you will never be in time, because queen d3, also rook b7 on every move, like rook b7 here. Rook b7, queen g6, even maybe rook takes d4. Because I want to have queen d3 after e5. I think it's very important to have that option.
And yeah, my most sincere apologies for sneezing. I tried to hit the mute button, but that time just overcame me. It's like I was possessed by that sneeze. As for the position, Magnus faces a tough choice, but if he can determine that king g6, queen f3 looks extremely scary, then sometimes you can just make a move by elimination.
Yeah.
And
He
see
also
if Levon finishes him off here.
it was also something already mentioned in chat, and it is very relevant. He is down to 20. 20 for 22 here, and he played king g8. He does realize that he needs to start making practical decisions, and he's already played king g8. I think he will not spend too much time debating queen d3 after queen h5. I think knight f6 will also happen at tempo. I think he figured out that the knight on d8 gets stuck, basically. If that line happens, let's show it again. Queen c7, bishop d7, seems like a best move. Knight f7 check, king g8, knight takes d8, rook c8. Yeah, and here you have to discuss where the queen goes. We liked queen e5, but maybe there are better moves. I don't know, queen d6 comes to mind actually. Yeah, this I actually don't particularly like. I think this is maybe the least clear of all White's options. I quite like queen e6. The bishop will be hanging on d7. So I think you kind of have to take, and then I take on b6. And I think maybe the best black can hope for is queen d3, and that I have nothing better than b7. But even after b7, I feel like this should be technically winning for White. Eventually, the bishop... okay. That's important, and that was completely missed, of course. Everything up to queen c7 already blitzed out, bishop d7 played by Magnus, so we are progressing apace towards
We're getting there.
Yeah. Knight f7 on the board. King g8 I think is a lot more natural than king h7. Knight takes d8 will be played. Rook c8 is strictly the only move in the position.
That's what's nice about a forced line in time trouble. At least you can blitz out like 6-7 moves in a row. Then
sure. Queen a7. Is that a topic we could be discussing?
If bc, you want knight b7.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, but it kind of looks vague. Also, I think maybe we've given up on queen takes b6 way too early. I don't know. I just don't like... I like sacrificing stuff. I don't like picking up more pawns, but maybe queen b6 on the previous move is just strong.
Well, if we can get our pawn here, that's
sure.
more
No, I mean, of course you want to play c takes b6 next move, but if it doesn't win, let's look at this for a second. Queen b6, knight g5, queen b7, e4. It might just be extremely strong. Bishop g5. And I threaten bishop takes f6 and queen c7. And looks...
Yeah, black is not on time for something like this.
Looks kind of horrible, yeah.
You resign.
And people are saying king h7 actually is more accurate than king g8. Yeah, Magnus is thinking, and he might play king h7, but it's very non-obvious why that would be. It's one of those things that are extremely clear to a machine, but...
Maybe in one of these lines there's no check on d8 in
maybe
1,000 moves.
But this looks very promising for White. First of all, let's count. It's only 3 pawns. I thought maybe it was 4. It's only 3 pawns for the piece, but 3 is plenty, I think, in this position.
Not too shabby.
Yeah.
And black can't coordinate.
King g6 maybe in this position, but yeah.
First of all, even this.
Rook c8.
Oh, sorry. I keep blundering there. And takes.
Takes, and king takes and king e7 is how I saved the bishop, but you get the feeling d5 wins anyway in that final position. You get the feeling d5 just breaks through.
Looks pretty bad.
Yeah, Magnus still in a lot of trouble, obviously here, and he is very relevantly down to 16 minutes. So we'll see what transpires. Lev also not leaving the board. He likes a walk, but I think he realizes that he must concentrate here to because it would be very good for him to continue playing fast here, and not have to think about decisions which can be taken on Magnus's time, so as not to give Magnus more time to work things out.
I'm wondering if Magnus got a haircut since his outing at Grenke Chess. Because his hair looks slightly shorter than there, but not really short.
Normally I would happily engage in that conversation, but today King h7 played.
And CP Coutert is getting bored with this game and suggests to go to other games. We will, but currently this is still quite exciting.
Yeah, not just yet. We need to get to some kind of a position where we'll have a clear understanding of what's going on.
Who's that? Is that Vladi? Nah, I think he's too skinny for Vladi, isn't he? He's very tall though.
Well, nobody else is this tall, I think, in this tournament. But yeah, if that's Vlad, he's been working out.
Levon looks very calm, very focused.
But yeah, just briefly on a side note, it does feel like White is doing very well in a lot of games, and in Nakamura MVL, someone probably is doing very well. It's an extremely sharp position there. Yeah, of the two options, Gobedi, working out or starving, I think working out is more likely. Knowing Vlad, as I do.
You don't think he's starving?
No.
Hikaru also not starving. Has his energy drink there. Right at the board. Must be nice.
Knight d8, rook c8 already on the board. So.
Looks like Levon will think of it, so we can do a brief round.
Yeah, but there's this mess in Nakamura MVL, which I would hesitate to evaluate, and in every single other position it seems like White is doing very, very well. Anish is better, we think Lev is better, and Lev has already taken on b6. He is playing this extremely fast. He's really not messing about.
He likes playing fast. If he's seen the line, he likes putting pressure on his opponent.
Yeah. I'm wondering if there's any point in including Queen d3 right now. I think there might be. But maybe White just gives this bishop now instead of a knight, like knight f7, queen d2, knight e5. Hoping to leave black with those horrible pieces.
Yeah, it's a nice knight to have.
Yeah, it is a very aesthetically pleasing knight. And that would be an argument for keeping the king on g8 actually, so as not to allow knight f7 at all, but
can't win.
Yeah.
Yeah, the game continues, but it feels very ugly for black, doesn't it? Dumb bishop, weak pawns.
Yeah, it's still 3 pawns, but yeah, even let's say if a6 and b4 are removed off the board and White doesn't allow any immediate counterplay, you think White is much better.
Yeah.
Endgames are better, and in the middle game in particular, the black king is just so unsafe that...
I throw rocks at Blind Kid says Magnus is down 3 pawns, but the comp says Lev is only slightly better. That's probably because Magnus is up a piece for his 3 pawns.
Not yet, but he will be. Knight on d8 is currently still alive, but there is, we think, probably 2 different moves which will eventually win the piece back.
That is true. But that's why the computer says it's not clear, because you can get this piece.
So yeah, this is the position in Nakamura MVL. I quite like Hikaru's king h1 choice, sidestepping all the tactics we were discussing. But he still needs to do something about the threat of knight g4.
Fresh tactic.
Yeah. Now for him the situation is quite clear. He knows that if he stabilizes and doesn't allow anything on the king side, he will probably win, because the passer on c6 will decide any endgame pretty much. But endgame is still some way away yet. And yeah, he needs to be very precise here. It's moved 25 and they're both down to around 28, 26 minutes. Probably will be an interesting time trouble as well, but difficult position to understand. I've been looking at this on and off for a while. I don't really understand what White's next move is even. Rook c2 maybe to overprotect the f2 pawn, but it looks extremely slow.
Queen d2, you go f4, yeah?
Yeah, f4, f3 is a very serious idea as well. It's probably also a very serious idea after rook c2. So I'm not sure why it would be. Oh, yeah, that's a very strong argument in favor of queen d2 actually. But hang on a second, f4 knight, f4 knight, g4? That's mate, right?
That's a very strong argument against queen d2.
Well, it would be still true with the queen on d2 and the rook on, with the queen on d1 and the rook on c2 would be exactly the same. That's just mate in 3.
That's a problem.
That is a bit of a problem. No, this rook on a3, it's very easy to forget it's there, but once it actually is included in the attack, it often will be the finishing touch that black needs here.
Let's briefly check out Anish's game, who has the two bishops on an open board, which we all learned in our respective Pioneers Palaces. It's normally a good thing to have.
Yeah, now black somehow needs to limit this bishop on d5, but like the best I can come up with at short notice is like knight e6, rook a1, and knight e7 maybe, or knight f4, maybe knight f4. But white probably wins a pawn here somehow. Like bishop takes e6, not somehow, but bishop takes e6 is very strong, which is why I was trying to play knight e7, rook e5. This looks very dodgy for black, because the bishop on c3 is still a rook e3, I thought wins. The bishop on c3 is still very strong, and the pawn on e5 is important. Knight e6 is already played by Vichy. I expect rook a1 to be played at tempo, and then Vichy will have a number of options. Knight e7 maybe, actually. That was my first idea, but then I gave up on it for some reason. Because bishop e6, f e6, I would be reasonably happy with black with the fact that some pieces are coming off. At least, you know, I'm not getting as mated as I was in other lines. After rook e5, I want to take, and I want to take on a4. And at least I want something back. And the knight on e6 is also very important because it cements the king side a little bit. And bishop takes g7, for instance, is not immediate mate, which it would be with the knight somewhere further away.
Yeah, we'll see. It feels like Anish is in the driver's seat.
Yeah, no, Anish must be better here, but the question is by how much.
If we go here, what's going on?
Not sure. Seems critical actually, because knight e7, bishop takes e6 is quite strong. I thought you meant your point was to take with the f pawn, but sorry, I mean my point, but it doesn't quite work. Because if queen takes e5, that was my original worry. I think knight d5, c d5, and no, it doesn't work. I wanted to go f6 here, but g6 wins. f e5, rook f8, it's just a queen. I mean, I don't have time to take on c3. I was hoping for some rook ending a pawn down, which I would be maybe able to save, but it's not a rook endgame a pawn down. It's just a lost position.
Yeah, so Vichy in some trouble. His small problems dealing with the English seem to be continue. And today I found puzzling because Anish, okay, I don't really know what happened in the opening, but Anish played this exact line against Grishuk, got a good position, and repeats it, and it seems to me like got a very good position again. Which you don't expect to happen if you play Vichy.
And we missed one, and that actually is also no longer really boring or equal. This is the Sokarekin game where white made a lot of progress. This is more or less exactly what white is dreaming of achieving in these lines. And in this position already, like it feels like you want to start discussing knight takes c6. It's probably a bit too early, but it's an option that...
But that's always looming, like sacrificing.
Yeah.
Running extreme position for white for these lines. Rook on a6, boom.
Yeah, rook d1 is also a very sensible move, trading one rook off and then hoping to find some improvement. Black's position is of course very resistant. It will not be easy to break this down. Like rook takes d1, queen takes d1, maybe bishop d7 or queen d7 or something. Bishop d7 in particular, just to make sure no sacrifices on c6 ever happen. And then I want to play, I don't know, knight g5, trade one pair of knights off, go f6, bring the other one towards better squares somewhere, e6, I don't know. And more than anything else, claim that yes, my pieces look ugly, but I only have one weakness, and it's so deep in my camp on c6 that you will not really get any of your pieces closer to it. But even knight b7, d6 here is... well, this is not a pleasant position. Not a pleasant position for black to play. And actually, even in the position they have on the board, I just realized knight b7 is at the very least a topic. Knight b7, rook e7, knight d6. Because I probably wouldn't mind trading c5 for e5 because it will lengthen my bishops. And yeah, the big question is if I can find a good move after f6. And it's probably not a change of structure that white needs yet. So I think Wesley will not go for this. Rook d1 is more natural, I think.
We'll see, but Wesley, that's what he does. Putting pressure, zero risks, improving his positions. And Karjakin, if he has one weakness, in my opinion, is that sometimes he gets himself into some trouble in the early middle game. Very strong in the opening, very strong in the end game and defending baddish positions. But that also means sometimes he gets baddish positions.
Yeah.
Back to Mr. Aronian, who for many years, you kids out there might not remember this, but for many years was Magnus Carlsen, world number 1, 7 years by now. And Levon Aronian, clear-cut world number 2. Magnus was like 2.860, Levon was 2.830, and everybody else was 2.790. So there was like a big gap at some point. No longer the case, even though Levon has remained a top 10 player. He has, not really distinguished himself from his peers, but he just won the Grand Chess Classic with, 5.5 out of 7, a huge score.
And came close to winning even the last game, which would have been a streak of 5 wins in a row. He won 4 in a row from rounds 3 to 6. And then was at some point, I think, a rook and a piece up against Fabiano and didn't win, which sounds ridiculous, but not when you see the position. The position was an extreme mess. As is actually Fabiano's position against Vlad now. I wonder if he wants to take on f3.
They do something wrong?
I don't know. He allowed some pawn pushes. We were here, but after king e2, Vlad started by knight g5, which is a very decent move. I don't know what g3. Yeah, I don't really understand what.
He's probably trying to stop f3 in some line, and then
immediately
jumping here.
Immediately, yeah. That's a very good spot. But still, knight c4, king f3, maybe f5 and d4. But I don't know, like e4 check here. Knight f4, even g4, I think wins on the spot, or knight e5. But e4 check might be playable. King g3 though. F4 check. This king might actually be in trouble here.
Yeah.
No, you don't make a move like g3 for no reason. I mean, Fabiano is not known for creating weaknesses in his camp for no reason whatsoever. So it's understandable. But then Black played f5, knight g5, rook f8, and here Fabiano decided to allow e4, which is, once again, it's a very committal decision. But I guess he felt that the bishop on b6 is so stupid that he shouldn't be very much worried.
Still, this pawn on f3, you have to disconnect your rooks.
But he is up a pawn, which means that he can actually just take this. He will have 3 pawns for the piece, and the bishop on b6 is still completely out of play.
Interesting.
I want to say I probably pick white, but I'm not so sure because Black's pieces apart from the bishop on b6 are quite decent. So like knight f6, rook d5 maybe.
And this bishop might stage a triumphant return at some point. Doesn't have to be dead forever.
Yeah, and he does go king d2 instead. But then this is a completely unclear position, you feel. Because this f5, e4, f3 construction, if it somehow moves even further down the board, white will be in so much trouble.
Drama, baby.
What was that all about? Knight d5 and Lev is thinking. I think that the reason he is thinking is that at some point I realized after queen b7, rook b8. That's MVL looking for something good after queen d4, which I think is a decent move by Hikaru, but we're not really.
Who is this giant shadow of a man? Magnus does not want to sit in anybody's shadow. And Levon seems excited.
What I wanted to say is queen b7, rook d8, e4 might allow bishop c8. I'm not sure if that move is good, but it's an option we didn't discuss. Because it unpins, it sort of frees black up a little bit. And that could be a reason for starting with queen a7, so that this tempo was never available to black. I'm currently favoring queen a7 slightly over queen b7, precisely for that reason.
What happens here? Queen f7, you
But
take
now I can
something?
play knight f6 maybe.
Pin.
I thought rook d7. Maybe. Yeah, but also knight takes b4. Maybe knight takes b4. Maybe I have to go sort of completely brazen and just take this and hope there is no mate.
Is there a mate? Bishop g5.
There could be
d7.
rook d7 though. But then queen h5, queen e8, queen takes c8 probably.
Oh
wins.
yeah, that's good enough.
Yeah, maybe there is really no call for stopping bishop c8, but what are we giving up on by playing queen a7?
What's queen a7 all about?
Not here, obviously. Previous move. Well, I'm hoping to get the same position, only absolutely delete one option from black's. It allows knight takes b4, but queen c7 wins a piece, right? Or even queen b6, but queen c7 in particular, I think. So it feels like of the two moves, maybe bishop c8 is not that strong, but by playing queen a7 you could just completely limit black to what we've already discussed.
Yep.
And Lev is very seriously considering his options here because it seems like whatever he does, he probably is better, but he doesn't want to let this slip. This is an important opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Rook a1, knight e7.
Yeah, I was advocating that, and because of that, I actually quite liked your queen f5. I think this actually gives black some hope. Maybe you take on e6, fe6, queen e4, but that no longer really feels that clear. I will take on f1, rook f1, knight c6, or maybe the immediate knight c6. And I feel like black probably has very decent drawing chances now. I have already at some point put the bottle sort of in full shot for people to have a look at what I'm drinking. How this still is a mystery is unclear to me. Knight c6 either after a rook trade or immediately. You choose what you like better, but it feels like the worst is over for black, frankly, because d3 is weak. The better of the two bishops is traded off. If you take on e5, even more material will come off. I will pick up on d3 in the end. And the white king is not really safer than the black king, which all argues that for this being close to equality, right?
Yeah. Looks like black is back in business. Do I have to take on e6? I really don't want to.
Well, rook e5 is what we discussed. Rook e5
Yeah,
from d5, but then I take on a4, and once again, equal material, and I did finally manage to kill off one of the bishops, which is a huge big deal, obviously, here. C takes d5 is kind of a move here, but maybe even knight g5. So, no, knight g5, there's queen f6 in the end. No. Maybe this is not that bad. Queen d4 check, rook e3. But maybe even rook takes d3 is playable, yeah, because there's no mate. Ef king h8. Yeah, some kind of a draw again. I mean, it feels that maybe Anish underestimated how decent 97 here is because. But they're also playing. I mean, they're not in severe time trouble yet, but they don't have time to really tank on any of their decisions. They're down to maybe 15, well, 16-ish minutes for Anish for the remaining 14 moves and 23 for Vishy.
Yeah, it feels a bit like the problem that Anish has been facing regularly. It's tough for him to finish off games, which of course is very understandable against all these world-class players. But he gets so many good positions, and he does not win enough of them to win one of these tournaments at least.
And Lev did go for Queen A7, takes E4, and Queen D3 blitzed out by Magnus, which is not really a huge surprise because we kind of refuted everything else. But isn't Bishop G5 just winning here? Maybe he wants to go Rook F8, but how is this not lost after he takes D5?
I don't understand. This is game over, right? This bishop is hanging.
Yeah, if the bishop was on B5, black would have tremendous counterplay, but it's not. And with only two pieces, white will never really struggle converting. I mean, with only two pieces, quote-unquote, attacking for black.
But I don't understand. You resign here, right?
Bishop G5, I think you resign. Yeah, I don't really understand. Because knight F6, just to show we take and we go Queen C7, and white is a large number of pawns up. Unless we're missing something very, very drastic, which I don't... Knight C3.
Oh, this.
Or this, yeah. Yeah.
This is the point.
This is the point, yeah. Well spotted.
And all of a sudden, black might win.
Yeah, this is resigns. This is very resignable. Hang on a second, let's go back. White can, in that case, take on D5 here.
Yeah, that's
Queen G2, Queen C7, but the queen gets there via the G5 square. And this is not that clear, because these pawns will start falling. In fact, I would maybe advocate for playing D6, because D6 Bishop E8, I mean DC6 Bishop E8 doesn't look clear to me at all. Maybe Queen B7 though, or something. Maybe only if white sort of wins immediately.
Queen's the pawn, he's gonna be in pretty good shape.
Maybe Bishop C8 because of that, to stop Queen B7.
Maybe.
4 for the piece here. So we can maybe spend some time consolidating like H3, Rook E1, E3. You still pick white. But this is still an ongoing game.
Yeah, Bishop G5, Queen E4 would be a blunder, but Levon will spot that. And this, the F knows. Feels nice to create this D6
You can also take immediately if you want here.
Where?
Well, C6, yeah. Because Bishop C6, Queen C7 still wins this piece. It allows Bishop takes G2, but I think this Queen endgame is probably... No, I would probably take on D8 and then play, I don't know, Queen H4 check and take on F1. This Queen ending looks lost. And Lev already found Queen takes E4, so E5, Queen D2 on the board. And I think, I mean, it's probably more practical to start with Queen C7, so as not to allow any of those things. So Lev will be better, but Magnus did manage to keep the game going, unsurprisingly, sort of keeping the ball in play. And he will be fighting Lev tooth and nail here.
It's hard to finish off this Carlsen character.
Yes.
In other news, Hikaru has...
Chat seems to suggest this is very, very strong for white. I mean, to my eyes, it looks like black might be winning, but Chat is of the impression that there is nothing really happening on the king side, and Hikaru is winning. So, and I assume Chat is using Silicon Intelligence. I guess F3 Queen takes E4. I thought F3 was very strong, but just Queen E4, FG Queen G2, I guess. And we've stabilized.
Yep.
12 minutes for Maxim against 23 for Hikaru for 12 moves in a very sharp position. And as we mentioned many a time early in the broadcast, Black is all in on this mating attack because the queenside is ruined and the pawn on c6 is just too strong. And also now the center is ruined, so if you just start going back, the pawn on e4 will be picked up. And everything will start falling down. But seemingly there is no mate. Not that I can see anyway.
Not even a trick then, no? Three.
Currently struggling to find a trick, yeah.
Nothing there.
Yeah.
Takes.
You can play king h8 here, but white isn't even forced to take. But it might win anyway, like hg, rook g8, cb7, something. Or c7, yeah, whichever one you prefer for taste reasons more than anything else.
Yeah, this doesn't look like.
I kind of wanted to avoid rook 8, which is why I was arguing for the other thing. But yeah, probably both win. And yeah, seems like Black achieved more or less everything he could have hoped to achieve on the king side, and White is still in control. And notice how the knight is still on c3. This is very impressive by Hikaru. Because that knight had many an opportunity to, like knight b5 on many moves, and knight takes e4 as well. I mean, not here where it would probably blunder mate in 3, but earlier there was a number of opportunities for White to play knight b5. And Hikaru very early on realized that this knight controls the rook on a3 and also keeps the e4 pawn in check. So the knight just stays there. It's not moving.
Yep, Hikaru in good shape. Anish Giri, the game progressed as expected. Looks roughly equal now, at least there didn't seem to be any direct shots.
Yeah, the queen is also very active. It might land somewhere around c2, and then White will have to pay constant attention to it. Yeah, I think you can safely say the worst is over here for Vishy. It looked a lot worse early on.
And if we can believe Neuromancer, and why would we not believe him? Fabiano went to the confessional and said, "It's a bit strange. The more I look at my position, it seems much better or winning." So Fabiano, optimistic.
Yeah, that's an interesting assessment, but and I understand why he prefaced it by saying this is strange, because it really doesn't look clear at first glance. Because if Black could somehow play c7, c5 here, without the en passant rule in force, Black would probably be instantly winning. Even with the king on c2, I mean with the king on d2 obviously, but even with the king on c2, if this bishop on b6 suddenly gets through the block on d4, the f3 pawn will become a queen in sort of immediate future. But it's just not happening for Black, and there is no comfortable way to attack the pawn on b5. And on the king side, Fabiano managed to create this kind of a wave breaker, which is extremely difficult to get through.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Bring his knight over here if he needs to. Bishop is still dumb.
yeah, knight g4, knight g4 he takes, and then the king replaces the knight on e3 as the blocking piece, I guess, and then he starts collecting. Yeah, I think I'm beginning to lean the same way. My original assessment also was that the position is completely unclear despite the extra pawn in an endgame, but yeah, I don't really see how Vladimir makes much progress.
Someone suggesting a5, ba, c5. Interesting idea.
Not a bad idea, but a5 can
We're
be
not
ignored.
forced to take this though.
I mean, the only question I have here is how White wins. Like, what progress do you make with White? If, in particular, maybe this is why a5 is so good, because it stops the White advances on the queen side for the future if you cannot take, which we currently assume White cannot, or at least doesn't want to.
But I have plenty plans.
Yeah. King h6 played by Vladi. I wonder if he wants to play king h5 and then knight g4 to take on g4 with the king.
Even then, king e3.
Yeah, I don't know.
Break.
I don't know if that achieves very much, but I wonder if that's the plan here. Also, as you mentioned, knight h3 f4 could be a very decent idea for White,
Especially if you go king h5.
yeah,
in particular, encouraged.
Yeah. In particular, then, yeah, that was a good spot. And MVL goes e3, which is something I considered because it's it's something to do. But I thought after f takes e3, I just couldn't see what his next move was after that. Maybe he wants to go f3 here. This might be the idea. HG-f2. And I guess if we take the knight here, he just wants to go HG, HG, and then play G3 next move against anything.
G3, FG.
The same issue again.
threat.
Yeah, like c takes b7 or something. Yeah. No, but maybe EF2 and G3 is a threat then. This is why we're taking on b7 to have rook takes f4 there. And Hikaru immediately snaps HG4, HG on the board, and I think CB7 is very likely to be a move here.
You think this works?
Yeah. I've only just realized just how crazy this is, but it might actually work.
Yeah, I can't refute it, but you gotta be.
I somehow assumed it was check. I just thought you have to take. This is completely lost, but yeah, I just didn't realize Queen H2 check was still a move you can make. But I think I actually ran away there. Yeah, this is dead. But Rook A1. But yeah, something will be Queen A7 check.
Beautiful.
Actually, King G6 and King game actually very much continues. Yeah, too funny for words.
Probably.
No,
We
but
can
here,
do better here.
yeah, there has to be something here.
So,
Yeah, probably Queen C7 just gives mate here. Yeah.
yep. So HG is on the board.
And I mean, the other move you would maybe want to make here is knight e4. With similar ideas of controlling the g3 square, which I think is why Hikaru is thinking, because generally I think cb7 is a very, very attractive option here. Because you need to start making even more progress on the queen side here. But maybe knight e4 is also winning.
And Levin has played d takes c6, but if I interpret the chat correctly, the computer preferred d6, as did you. People are now saying he blundered into a draw by playing d takes c6. Probably because the computer evaluation went to 0-0.
Yeah, that's not the same thing as blundering into a draw, though.
Nope.
Bishop c8 played, yeah, and left played h3, so... but maybe e5 is decent now. I just realized e5 was a move.
Queen e5, you gonna get all my pawns?
Well, I will get the relevant ones, like rook e8, rook e6.
Still looks nice.
Well, it does look excellent. Yeah, I don't know why people would use draw with all capitals here. This is not a draw. The machine might think that there were better moves available for Lev, but this is maybe rook d4. Yeah, this is not a draw. This is maybe an equal position. I'd hesitate even to go this far because it doesn't look equal. It looks like one side is better probably, and that side probably is white. But maybe queen f6 simply in the position they have on the board right now. Maybe e5 is getting carried away a bit. Because my rook e1 e3 plan is a bit slow. It's not horrible, but it's a bit slow. Maybe rook d1 d3 is a bit stronger now. e5 d5.
Yeah. Queen f6 doesn't seem
No,
to accomplish much.
I would definitely still be picking white here, but once again, if the machine suggests this is a mistake, it probably is a mistake. It's very difficult to argue with its assessments of these things, but yeah. Doesn't feel like a draw to me. At least not yet. And
We'll find out. Bit of time travel looming as well. 9 minutes for Magnus, 16 minutes for Levin Aronian.
although it is already move 30, they did blitz out a very, very long force sequence at some point, which helped with the time travel situation significantly. And Hikaru did take on b7.
Magnus went queen d5, it looks like. Yep. Centralizing.
Yeah, and also rook d1 e5 here, so the pawn on d4 is gone now.
I like this move.
Yeah, this is good. But still, okay, let's have a look at this. Rook e1, queen d4, rook e3. But yeah, you start feeling that black might be okay here, because the pawn on c6, with the bishop on c8, it's no longer really getting anywhere. You can play rook f8, for instance, here. And it could arguably even become double-edged at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
Queen d6, I wanted to go queen f4 or queen f6 or something, yeah. Although there's rook f3, I guess queen f6 because of rook f3. Because here you have queen a1 check.
Yep, yeah. Anything can happen.
And there's developments everywhere. Chat is telling us to go to this game or the other, but it's very difficult because today actually we have 5 tremendously exciting games pretty much. And it's very difficult to... Oh, Wesley gave up an exchange.
Whoa!
But in that position, like all these sacrifices, they don't really even deserve a whoa, because White's position, regardless of what he does, is extremely comfortable. Like if Black is forced to take, the bishop will land on... He just went rook b6, rook b8, a very direct idea, and I quite like it, yeah. It's interesting that Sergei allowed it. He could have played f6 and not allow it, but he decided that he didn't believe it was a threat. But let's say you take, the bishop lands on d6, then we go bishop g2 and we go e5.
Yeah.
This is not this is not a sacrifice as such. You just convert one form of advantage into a different form of advantage.
Generally, bishop pair and the pawn is not supposed to be big material investment.
Is there any argument at all? No, I kind of know the answer to that. I was about to suggest in this position going knight e5, bishop e5, bishop h3, but bishop takes h3 actually wins, and knight takes e6. And briefly, can we go to the Hikaru MVL camera?
Yeah, that's what I would like to.
Yeah, that's progressing exactly along the lines that we were discussing earlier, and our thinking was that there aren't enough checks. I think the king runs to d3 and the checks run out. That was my impression, like queen g2, king d3, or frankly anywhere, but in particular queen g2, king d3. No more checks, and if there's no more checks, then White will start giving checks, and then, actually the score sheet's already signed.
Maxime resigned yet? It didn't quite work.
Yeah.
So Hikaru continues with a strong outing, moves to +2 in the tournament, 3 out of 4.
Yeah, an early front runner for the lead after. I think we expect him now to be the sole leader after round 4, because Vladi is
not going to win.
Yeah, he's in trouble against Fabiano. He might not lose, but I think if he wins, it's only after a blunder of some sort.
Oops. Also an interesting screenshot, but what I wanted was something totally different. Hikaru, 3 out of 4, Kramnik, 2 out of 3, Magnus Carlsen, 1.5 out of 3. This Aronian Carlsen game, of course. Very key for how this tournament is going to end up. I have a feeling Levin is no longer a favorite to win the game.
It's hard to say, because...
I mean, compared to
compared to what he had, maybe it's not that great anymore. But I don't know. I still like White. I don't really understand why the machine is so pessimistic about it. Lev goes rook d1. Let's try analyzing e5, because I think it depends on whether e5 is a move or not. I guess rook d3. If you take rook g3. To be honest, it still looks tremendously dangerous for Black. I don't really understand the enthusiasm people had for Black's chances here.
e5 plate.
I'm expecting rook d3 to be played more or less at tempo, because you really want this rook to be active, and that's the only way to activate it. Queen e7 is also potentially very strong instead of rook d3, maybe even stronger than rook d3, but it might lead to the same positions. Queen e7, in some positions it will also create a threat of c7 maybe, but both those moves look extremely strong to me. Maybe after
happening?
Well, after rook d3 I'm struggling to find a move for Black here.
No.
Even here, yeah. Black is just completely tied up. The rook on d8 doesn't have any good squares, and yeah, queen h4 is always at the back of your mind. And rook g8, queen h4 is probably winning here. Rook takes d4, rook d6. Continued attack and 4 pawns for the piece. Yeah, and rook d3, not queen e7, but the immediate rook d3 played by Lev, but it also looks very, very strong. I thought for a second maybe e4 and queen takes d4 could be decent here, but I don't think it's all that great for black.
The chat apparently is saying Carlsen big blunder. I'm not sure which move, e5.
Probably e5.
Possibly, yeah.
But I mean, what else could he have played there after rook d1? I really, it's. But that's the thing, people call of these things blunders. Carlsen is making what appear to be the most logical moves in the position.
b3 maybe, or rook e1. Yeah.
Not even entirely sure queen takes d8 is a draw, to be honest, but also rook e1, yeah.
Anyway, let's not play the guess the engine move game. And yeah, rook g3 ed. How does white finish it off here? Rook g3.
Rook g3 looks very strong. Queen e7 immediately also looks very strong. I think it's a matter of taste.
Yeah,
and here queen e7.
Queen e7. Threatening a check.
But here maybe queen takes e6, queen h6 might be okay. Which is why you probably want to start with queen e7. Queen e7 is not such an obvious move though.
Nope.
Because you really want to create a threat against the g7 pawn straight away. It might be extremely strong though. Lev has 10 minutes for 8 moves here. Potentially, this is the last difficult choice he needs to make in this game.
There he goes. Queen e7 on the board. Magnus does not look happy with that move.
Yeah, not
Looks
at
like
all.
it surprised him.
And Lev is confident enough to just leave the board there.
We can even see the clock on this angle. 9:49 for Levon, 8 minutes for Magnus. That's not the factor, but the position all of a sudden has turned. Or that was a logical conclusion, but according to what we gathered from the computer evaluation, it is. It's been a bit of a roller coaster. Magnus won't be happy. And I also read that Geary has done something wrong. So let's briefly go there. This is not running away.
No, I think people were suggesting that Vishy blundered, and it actually looks more like a Vishy blunder than an Anish blunder.
Anand blunder, sorry.
Yeah, something like g6 looks like it might win here.
So we've seen this. Thought it was roughly equal. But Anish pushes his pawns up the board.
Yeah. Yeah, that looks extremely risky. And after g6, maybe Vishy thought he can take like queen takes h4 here, but queen f7 just... No, hang on. Queen f7 is a perpetual. So how does black lose after queen takes h4? Maybe gf and rook f2 simply wins.
Wow.
And g6 already played.
Anish took the jacket off. Don't see that happening often.
What's happening after queen e8? Maybe rook e1? No, rook e1, yeah, rook e1, queen d7, how do you win there? The, like there's a very attractive option of bishop takes g7, but it doesn't work, I thought. Maybe it does work. Whoa. Jan. Queen e8, bishop g7, king g7, queen f6, king g8, g7, queen e3, king h2. And that actually is more or less curtains. Because like queen d2, rook f2, you have to give up that queen, but he will not save this position with so many passed pawns here.
Vishy likes his fortress, but not against.
No, if you remove the h4 pawn, maybe you can hope to make a draw here. But with the h pawn still alive, this is a reasonably easy winning position for white.
And Pramod points out that in 7 knight c5, queen takes h4 was holding according to the engines.
d, queen g5. I guess it ends in some kind of an endgame with 3 pawns for the piece, which might not be that horrible actually, yeah.
How do you run out of checks?
Well, I will
Or
at some point
checks.
play queen g3. No, I think it's probably that. Maybe queen takes e6 even. Yeah, I mean, but I'm pretty sure he just thought that bishop takes g7 wasn't winning.
Sure.
Or maybe he missed bishop takes g7 altogether, although for Vichy the bishop takes g7 would be very, very weird. He generally doesn't miss one move tactics. But he hasn't really been setting the world on fire in this tournament.
Nope, not yet. Lost with white to Kramnik, very uncharacteristic for Vichy. Maybe all the milking cows on the rest day tired him out of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he participated in that though.
Alright, let's go back to the Carlsen camp.
He played bishop f5, but now you feel that rook g3 is very strong, and you can also throw in c7 at any point. Like the immediate c7 looks very, very promising. Because where do you go?
Where do you go?
My lovely. He goes rook g3, and to be honest, I didn't really see how black responds to that either. Because rook g8, queen h4 is actually mate. And if you play bishop g6, I can, yeah, or that. And if you play bishop g6, I can win this bishop by playing queen h4 check, and rook takes g6, and then c7, and rook d6. It does appear as if this game is about to conclude. There's really not a lot you can do in this position.
Yeah, that would be 2 in a row in Norway chess for Levon Aronian versus Magnus Carlsen.
Yeah.
I remember in 2015, Levon had a good position and went on to lose it, and mutual time travel was very upset with himself. Then in 2016, he beat him. And it looks like in 2017 will happen again.
Yeah, seems like a bit of a problematic day for players with the black pieces today. Probably 3 games will be won by white. Anish not entirely clearly, but I think he's likely to convert from there. Vichy found queen d7, which doesn't seem to... Yeah, we'll continue watching this, but really there's not a lot to watch anymore.
Yeah, and Magnus already had a very resigned hand motion there when he had to go bishop g6. Gabriel Petrillo says, Levon is an extraordinary player, he just needs more confidence.
That's not entirely incorrect.
Yeah, it's hard to define confidence, because he's extremely confident in some ways, but yeah, sometimes when the stakes are the highest, things haven't worked out for him. And Magnus resigns. Levon Aronian defeats the reigning world champion. Because after queen h4 check.
Yeah, bishop h5, rook g5, or queen h5, queen takes d8. And as mentioned, king g8, rook g6 is just completely over. And yeah, the next game to finish probably will be Anish versus Vichy, where Anish found a very interesting solution to queen d7. I wasn't really expecting that, but apparently it's very difficult to stop d4 here. a5, bishop a3, and then you sort of run out of ways to stop d3, d4, which picks up a lot of material.
Him left and right. That's nice.
Yeah. I did not expect bishop b4 at all. I thought, white win will be connected with something like h5 maybe. or he could collect a lot of pawns on the queen side by queen h5, fg, rook f8, queen h8, queen takes g7. But bishop b4 is a very nice touch.
Very cute. Black is overloaded. These guys have to defend the f7 pawn. Knight is pinned, so a5 is the only move that really makes sense. You go away. Nothing you can do. f6, d4.
f6, queen h5 is probably even
queen h5 is checkmate.
Queen h5 collects everything. Although d4 probably wins here as well. It's not really a bad move by any means. Yeah.
Game over.
Not great. And Wesley is also... His position looks tremendously good. How did they get here?